You're listening to Rebel Hearts Rising, where we believe your darkest hour holds the key to awakening depth and profound inner wisdom. I'm Tam Burke, and I created this to remind you that when your heart wants to shut down, that's your call to rise, like a phoenix from the ashes. What makes this unique is that every episode is paired with a guided meditation to help awaken your intuition and heal on deeper layers. Together, we'll turn pain into power. What if your greatest pain was actually the source of your power? What if the hardest things that you've ever been through could actually awaken deep magic inside of you? I'm Tam Burke, and I'm really happy to be here with you. I've had a really rough last few years, a dark night of the soul, if you will. I walked in on a loved one overdosed on the floor and did CPR to save their life. My best friend took her life out of nowhere in a way that was so violent and shocking that for weeks after, I couldn't even tell you my own address because it literally broke my brain. Shortly after that, I experienced the brutal sting of public cancellation by a woman who I would have called my best friend. And these things wrecked me. I thought I was dying at some point, like a star that kind of slowly blinks out. You see it, but its light keeps dimming and dimming. And it was through these experiences that I realized if you have the courage to do the work, if you decide to pull the threads, to have the courage to sit with the things that feel the most tender, you have an ability to open up wild power within you. After experiencing all of these things, I started to realize that it is our deepest wounds that hold our greatest wisdom. And that if we choose to do the work, it gives us so much depth. And I've learned from myself and my clients that you can only go as deep with others as you're willing to go with yourself. And so by experiencing this, by choosing this, you open up so much depth in your life. And kind of like magic mushrooms, some of us have to grow and go through a profound amount of to open up our magic. We see these parables in the lotus rising through the mud. And so Rebel Hearts Rising is about the moments that your heart wants to cower, that you feel gutted, you feel like your teeth got punched out by the universe. And it's about choosing to rise again and again. Even in making this podcast, I toured this space months ago. And then I found myself laying awake at night thinking, what will people think when I put myself out there? And having already experienced cancellation, I felt my heart cowering again and again. What if it happens? And every time I'd close my eyes and do my meditation, I would hear again and again that I wanted to share my story, that I wanted to create a place where we knew that we weren't alone. A space where we offered ourselves the courage to move through life. Because some of us experience these kind of heart-ripping moments. You get that phone call that changes your life. You lose people you never thought that you would. And some of us instead experience tiny little paper cuts along the way. And God forbid you choose to get a dog because damn, their lifespan is way too short. And so pain, suffering is guaranteed in life. And we actually don't have a lot of spaces that teach us how to hold ourselves, how to hold the difficulty of challenge, and how to be vulnerable in it all. And instead, what ends up happening is we shove things down and then we become ill. We find dis-ease in our life. Or worse, we realize that we're living a life that isn't meant to be ours, that it's completely inauthentic. I cannot tell you how many times I've had an ego death and how many times I've risen and how many more times I hope to have that happen. Because each time a part of me dies, my identity dies, who I thought I was no longer ceases to exist. I find more and more power in myself. And that's really what I want to offer you in this space, is to not fear your initiations and your challenges, but to realize that they are the key to opening up to depths and parts of yourself that you never knew. And I really believe, I've seen this in myself and my clients, that we open ourselves up to our intuition. Because when we feel our feelings, when we understand how to feel our feelings, we open up to the subtle senses around us, our sixth sense, a world beyond the unseen. And it is through that magic that you always feel guided. Listen, I was the girl that had it all together. I graduated high school at 16, college at 20, and by 25, I had 5 years of professional experience at one of the world's largest companies as one of their youngest managers. And just in case that wasn't enough, I trained for a marathon at the same time. I would work all day, go to school at night, and after school, I would run and listen to my textbooks. It was the type of thing that my external resume impressed everyone. And yet on the inside, I was fucking dying. I was so unhappy. I was living a life that was so inauthentic. And so I want to share a story with you today about how I went from an accountant. My last position, my title was a quality control analyst, to a multi-7-figure entrepreneur, where I currently make my money right now as a psychic. Let me explain. I'm not the kind of psychic where I can tell you what you had for dinner, although sometimes that does happen. I'm the kind of psychic where in a session I can very quickly feel what your blocks are. Things from your childhood, energetic patterns that are repeating. And it's why my clients have such insane breakthroughs. Why they talk about how a few months with me is more than a decade that they've had in therapy. And it took my rebel heart to be able to claim that I was a psychic too. And I'd love to share the story of how that happened, because it is something that changed the person who I was. It completely stripped down everything that I knew to be true and cracked me wide open. I was in teacher training. So you know that I was already a little curious about the spiritual world. And we'd had a really challenging physical practice. Like, your girl was sweating. And we went into Shavasana, that's where you pause and you're still at the end. And the teacher had a drum and rattle soundtrack going on. And in Shavasana, I had a waking dream. And this changed my life. This cracked me open into unseen depths that I really had not forecasted or planned. It was almost like experiencing psychosis. And what happened was, as I was in that Shavasana in teacher training at Charlotte Yoga, I was transported to a place in the wilderness where I was laying around a fire with people who I knew to be my elders. And y'all, this was so freaking real. It was wild. Like, I could feel the fire on my skin. I could feel how hot the rocks were from the fire. Still to this day, I look for the type of tree that I saw in this vision, because this was real. This was not a dream. This was not anything like that. I cannot even begin to describe to you how real this was, how tangible it was. It was actually more real than what my real life felt like. And as I laid around this fire, my elders gave me this substance to drink where I was meant to go out in nature and receive wisdom from the nature to give to my people. Like, I could somehow translate messages from the natural world into wisdom for my tribe. And when I opened my eyes at Charlotte Yoga, I was shook. Like, at this time of my life, I was never speechless, and I was speechless. I was actually really up from this, and you could see it in my eyes. A couple people who were with me were like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No, I'm not." And so I went searching, and I found a woman who became my mentor, Dana Childs, and I did an intuitive session with her that continued to crack me open, learning about how time isn't linear and everything is happening at once, and opening myself up to greater truths in the world around me. The things that when you hear them, they just feel like such deep truth for you. And I remember after that session being like, what is going to happen? Am I going to grow wings? Like, this is crazy. This is crazy. And that really sent me on a journey. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more about this unseen world. I literally went from the most right-brained person you could imagine As a quality control analyst, do you know what I did? I was selected for this job in a restructure from my company because they said I had such strong detail skills. And my job was to check my coworkers' work to make sure that we were working up to the accounting codes that you needed. Like, I want you to think about that for a second. I was checking people's work to make sure it was accurate. And then I had this wild, almost psychedelic experience from maybe a dream? And that's what a lot of people told me. It's a dream. But in my heart, I knew it wasn't. In my heart, I knew it was more. It was a calling. And of course, I said no to the calling. Like, I didn't want to be a weirdo. And how would I even develop this to begin with? I'll tell you how I developed it. I spent years chasing psychedelics. Maybe eating a few too many along the way. One day we'll talk about the time that I ate 9 grams of mushrooms under medical supervision and how I met God and the aliens and all the truths. But the thing is that I realized you don't need psychedelics to experience the unseen world. It is a fast track and it's helpful and it's part of the work that I love to do with my clients and my community. But that actually really takes your power away because it makes you think that you need something outside of yourself to create that potent magic within. And after years of chasing magic, I started to realize that it all comes from within. And so on this magical mushroom psychedelic journey, I really realized that our deepest power comes from within. And more than that, it comes from feeling our feelings. It comes from embracing all parts of ourselves, especially the parts that we don't love. Because when we give those parts of ourselves love, when we lean into our discomfort, we build serious amounts of confidence. And we realize that we're able to feel our depth, our fullness. And from that place, we're able to create even deeper relationships. Because we can only go as deep with others as we're willing to go with ourselves. And this is where somewhere along the way I realized that there was a little bit of a problem. Most of us are not taught how to feel our feelings. We're certainly not taught how to feel grief. And a lot of us don't know how to feel, or better yet, hold on to our happiness. And so there's something wrong with a society that doesn't teach us how to feel deeply. Because the law of polarity talks about to the depth that you're able to feel grief, you're also able to feel joy and happiness. And so that's also what Rebel Hearts Rising is about. It's about having the courage to be with all of your feelings, especially the ones that feel illogical. Because feelings speak in a very similar language to our intuition. And when we start to make sense of this kind of non-linear experience, we're better able to receive wisdom from within us, from the unseen world. And so I started to realize that when we are fully alive and fully awakened, we're never alone because we're always guided. There's that North Star, that intuitive higher self, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, inside of us. And that's how we feel like we're not alone. When we realize that there's a higher power that we can connect to. In the moment that we are literally brought to our freaking knees, that we realize that we're meant to be guided. And that it is from that depth that we can create joy. That we can awaken the magic within us. This isn't just another podcast. This is a rebellion of the heart. It's to remember that when life's gut punches, or you get knocked out by challenge, that you're stronger than you think, and that magic will come from that. And so when I started to awaken deep senses of intuitive capacities, I felt nervous to tell people about it. Even recently, when I came out as a psychic, I thought, what are my parents going to think? And what are my friends who don't believe in energy going to think? And I realized that it didn't matter. Because when we have the strength to listen to our heart, to be authentic, that's where we cultivate power. And if we're constantly living life worrying about what other people think or how we're going to move through challenge, we hold ourselves back. And so this is a place to empower you, a call to embrace all parts of yourself. The parts you don't like, the weird parts, every piece of you deserves admiration. And that's backwards from what we've been taught. So much along my journey, I've realized that so much is backwards. And so that's what this space is about. It's about realizing that when we move into courage and love around who we are, we awaken unstoppable magic. And I actually believe that everybody's magic is like their fingerprint. All fingerprints kind of look the same, but we all have our unique signature on them. And so that means that we all have unique gifts. And only you can really lean into understanding that. One of my favorite ways to do that is through meditation. And that is what's going to make this podcast really different, is because with every podcast is going to come a meditation that allows you to feel it on a molecular level in your heart. And I'm also going to do the meditations in a way that really awaken your intuition. Your intuition and your imagination are highly linked. Most people don't see energy outside of them. They see it in their third eye, this place of imagination, of perspective. And that's also why grief and trauma are related to intuition, is because it changes our perspective on life. It changes our ability to see beyond what has been. And so instead of looking at all of these things that happen to you, it's cliche, but it does happen for you. And so this is a place that you get to know that you're not alone in your struggles. You get to know that everything that you're going through, I believe, is designed to awaken you to your highest level. It's meant to increase your consciousness and bring you past what you could even dream for yourself. Because that's the thing, right? Our human mind limits us so much. Which is why feelings are the greatest teachers, because they don't make sense. I find feelings to be a bit like smoke. You have to wait until things settle to pull the messages out of it. But because so many of us, myself included, can be so right-brained, we don't have the ability to lean into the patience in the mystery that come with feelings and intuition. And it's in the last few years that I've developed this understanding, that I've awakened these gifts in myself, that I literally use it to make money now. And so I'm not saying that your intuitive gifts even need to become part of your job. They can if you want it to. But there's this inherent support that comes when you know that you're not alone. When you know that at any point in time, you can reach deep inside of yourself. Your inner world holds so much wisdom and so much guidance. And you can pull out the next steps. You can know what you need to do to really be present with yourself. And so we're here to feel the feelings, attune to your intuition, and really harness the magic of the unseen world. This podcast is for the woman who knows that she wants more. More truth, more depth, more magic, and more of herself. You are not alone. This is Rebel Hearts Rising. And I'd love to know if this felt really powerful, if this awakened something inside of you. Send this to another woman who needs to hear this message, who needs to know that the thing that she's going through that has deeply challenged her, or is still challenging her, is part of her waking up to her own power. Something really cool that I'm doing is if you join my email list, every time that we drop a new podcast, you'll get a link to it, but you'll also get a link to the meditation and journal prompts. Journal prompts have been wildly helpful on my journey to understand myself more deeply. It's a way of living in the question, inviting space for you to understand yourself. And so I want this entire experience, the podcast, the meditation, and the journal prompts to be a way for you to deepen your relationship to yourself, to others. But that first starts with how deep you're willing to go. How raw and vulnerable can you meet yourself? And so if this landed today, if you're feeling inspired, please DM me because I want to talk about this. I love moving into understanding that we are more capable than we could ever imagine. That we are actually a match made for our mountains.